Maruti Suzuki's People Technology presents Suzuki Connect with Navigate to Car and many other features.
Watch more, feel more. Dell.
And then there were four. Finally, we are here at our semi-finals, and 850 days have passed. The world is a different place than when England and New Zealand last met in arguably the greatest ever ICC World Event final that we've witnessed. Back come Owen Morgan and Kane Williamson, familiar foes, friends even, at Abu Dhabi for the first semi-final. This is Maruti Suzuki Presents, ESPN Cricket for T20 Timeout out by Dell. Tom Moody, Mahela Jayawardene, and Ajit Agarkar all with me. Who's putting their hand up for a super over tonight? And do I see a lot of black? New Zealand are back to their black kits. The retro would clash with the blues of England, but Mahela's in nice neutral shades. Is that a dark blue again, Tom? That I can't see, bro.
Yeah, no, this is a navy blue. So it's
Yeah.
not quite black, but yeah, I'm trying to remain neutral here.
Yeah, you think even the neutral fan has a special place for New Zealand in their heart, Ajit Agarkar, doesn't it?
I'm actually a proper neutral here. So, yeah, but I mean, after what happened in that finals in 2019, who knows? Maybe the Rubber Greens, they deserve some luck, New Zealand.
Yeah.
The toss certainly has gone their way. If they can play well enough, could end up being an important toss.
Yeah, and Owen Morgan says, I hope the toss doesn't decide the game. He says he would have bowled first as well, Mahela. And you think, even though we've not quite seen the best of New Zealand, England were considered hot favourites. Suddenly, that big change of Jason Roy and now New Zealand winning the toss, does that make this game a 50-50 for you?
Yeah, I think all captains, when they lose a toss in Dubai, trying to, save face and say that, it's not going to make a big difference. But if the dew comes in, it's always going to be. So I think that, the semi-final is always going to be on that day, how you perform and the nerves. You're always giving up about 10-15% of consistency, what you've done in the tournament stage to a semi-final game, because you're always going to be nerves. There's going to be guys who's going to play their first semi-final. Even in the England camp, there are quite a few guys who are in that situation, and New Zealand as well. So I think when you're starting this game, I think it's going to be quite even. It's how you're going to control those nerves, how you're going to try and take that advantage and play without that fear of failure.
Does the toss not matter as much in Abu Dhabi, though, Ajit, as it has in Dubai?
Seems that way. Seems that way. I mean, look, I think teams who've batted first sometimes in Dubai haven't put up enough runs. If you do put up enough runs, yes, the dew might have a bit of a say, but the pressure of a semi-final might be different when there are runs on the board, and that could play out a bit differently. So first things first, you want to put the runs on the board. We've seen some real low scores in Dubai, and then the team defending has had no chance at all. So I don't think there's been too many games where the team batting first has scored a 170, 75, and then gotten beaten because the conditions have dramatically changed and the dews played a huge part. There certainly is an important toss, but if England do put runs on the board, chasing may not be as easy because of the pressure of a semi-final.
Yeah, we look at their head-to-head record, England and New Zealand in T20 as different format, remember, to the last time they met in an ICC event. It's close. It tends to be. It's not like you've got a landslide of T20I games to go with, but that's what we've got. 3-2 to England in World Cups since 2016, 4-3. The overall record standing at 13-7. There are enough names from that final in 2019, Tom, that featured today. I think 5 from New Zealand, 6 perhaps from England, somewhere there. For New Zealand, though, we say that it's just another game and they would have put that final behind. But of all the ICC events and the types of games, that final's a hard one to put behind you, isn't it? You think?
Oh, that'll be still hurting. There's no question, and that'll hurt as long as they're talking or thinking about cricket. You can guarantee that. But in a way, they got a little bit of redemption with the ICC Test tournament. They won that and got recognised at a major ICC event there. But that is one thing. This would be, I think, a very nice way for them to at least put the majority of that pain that happened at Lords in 2019. Behind them if they manage to turn over England today. England, in my view, go into this game as favourites, but in a way, I think that favourites tag has been slightly lost with the toss. I think there is an advantage with the toss, so it's going to be intriguing to see which side manages the pressure of a semi-final. And that's what it's about. It's just managing little moments in the game and not panicking, and managing to sort of stay ahead of the game without sort of panicking under the pressure of the final.
Just the one change that was expected for England. Jason Roy, heart goes out to him, misses out on a World Cup semi-final. But Johnny Bairstow will open, confirms Owen Morgan. And Sam Billings, what a first game to get, a semi-final of a World Cup against New Zealand, slots into somewhere in that middle order. We've not seen best of best yet, Tom, and Jason Roy will always be a big miss. But if he had to find the best position to bat, he'd prefer the top two, wouldn't he?
Absolutely. Johnny Bairstow, I think, would prefer any day of the week to be opening the batting in a T20 game than sort of batting at 4. Look, he's a very fine player. So they haven't lost anything at the top of the order, but, Bairstow's also played a significant role in that middle order. What this does is not only puts pressure on a new player coming in Sam Billings, but it puts more pressure on Owen Morgan, the batsman. So it's going to be intriguing to see where he comes in the batting order. I think he's listed there at 4 on that particular chart. I don't think he'll bat 4 because they won't have two left-handers coming in at 3 and 4. I'd imagine either Livingston will take the Johnny Bairstow role as the impact player, which Bairstow was at 4, and Billings will slide down the order as more of a finisher with Owen Morgan and Moeen Ali.
Mahela, would you go with that? They do have two spinners, New Zealand, that those two left-handers wouldn't mind coming if at all Butler and Best to get off to a good start.
Yes, but I'm going to go with Tom. I think, the way Owen Morgan's batting, he's going to just see the situation and then come in. I think they need to use Moeen Ali as well up the order at some point rather than pushing him way back, because he's in form. He's a very instinctive player. He just needs to bat, 15, 20 balls to make an impact. So I think they need someone to finish games off. Yes, I agree. But at the same time, in a semi-final, you need to make sure that your best players get majority of the ball. So I think Livingston to bat at 4, and even a player like Moeen Ali to come at 5 in a game like this.
Would you have been tempted, Mahela, with the kind of IPL and 100 that Moeen Ali had, to just say, well, why not throw him up the order? Do you think if it wasn't for Bairstow in this team, that any other team would have been tempted to go Moeen Ali at the top, gives them the left right hand too?
Yeah, absolutely. I think they would have discussed that as well, but I think Johnny Bairstow is naturally an opener. I mean, he's going to make a huge impact if he spends, you know, 10 overs out there in the middle. He's capable of getting an 100 for them. So I think they will play that percentage game. They want some experience in the middle, want some stability as well. So I think they don't want to make too many changes. But if there was no Johnny Bairstow, yeah, the natural pick would have been Moeen Ali to go to the top.
What a fascinating first 6 overs we got lined up. We keep saying in every game, Ajit, they're important. But this is perhaps the strongest suit for both teams. We just saw numbers for England's openers. We know the kind of form Butler's in. And New Zealand with ball in the power play have been better than any other team. Now, some of those numbers you think were against 3 relatively weaker teams in their respective group, but we saw what they did to India. Could the first 6 overs effectively just decide this game?
I don't know whether it'll decide the game, but it could go a long way decide where the result goes, because if they can get Butler out, certainly. I mean, Johnny Bairstow's as dangerous if he gets going. The one thing he'll also do is attack spin, which New Zealand tend to sometimes use in the power play. May not be today, but if he gets going. But Butler's wicket, we've seen how important it is. I mean, that innings at Sharjah told you what a key player Butler is for England, or probably the most important batter in that lineup. So, in a sense, it could well have a big impact on where this game goes and how much New Zealand have to chase if they can bowl well up front in those 6 overs, where Bolt and Saudi both have been terrific. I think not just bowled well, but managed to pick up wickets. And in this instance, even if one wicket to break that opening partnership could be very vital.
Have they been the standout all-round bowling unit for you in this tournament, Ajit? We talk about an organized New Zealand side. I don't think their bowling units had an off day in this tournament just yet.
They haven't, but I think Pakistan's probably up there with them. If you look at Pakistan's bowling, Pakistan perhaps have a little bit more, but New Zealand have performed again. I mean, we keep going back to Tim Saudi, as good a bowler as
Yes.
he. Every time there's a discussion, and his numbers are as good as anyone in this competition, or actually better than most people in this competition, and bowls the tough overs as well for them. So everyone's getting the job done. They've made that bold decision of getting Adam Milne in early as a special, as a full fifth bowler, and not rely on someone like a Neesham or a Phillips, who when need be, they can use them depending on the conditions. Two quality spin bowlers, so they've got most bases covered, and that's why they can. It doesn't matter what the condition or what team they play against. They've got good matchups for most batsmen.
Curious case of Abu Dhabi in this tournament, Tom, and I'll bring up the numbers in the power play comparatively. England and New Zealand, we know that they go hard. Do England? Just look at their run rate. We're looking at an 8.33, so they beat New Zealand on that batting average. New Zealand up there, bowling averages. Different story. England seem to be doing better than them, but what we've seen in Abu Dhabi is lower average power play numbers for teams and yet higher scores. What are we expecting from England? What sort of approach are we expecting against an informed New Zealand bowling attack in a World Cup semi-final?
Well, I don't think England's brand of cricket's going to change. That they have very much under Morgan's guidance been a brave side, and they've continued to play hard regardless of the loss of wickets early. So they'll continue to push the game and push the game very hard. He'll be very much on his players to maintain that brand of cricket, where New Zealand tend to play more of a conservative style of game, and it's more of a slow kill.
Mahela?
I think they're going to play the same way. I think the only way New Zealand can control that England lineup is by picking up early wickets, and that's the only way that England will slow down. And even at that, it's going to be for a few overs, and they're going to go hard again. I mean, that's the structure that they've been playing. They've been successful doing that, and they will never ever go away from that. I think they know the success for them is if they play that, and especially in this game now, them having to bat first, they need to put that 10-15 runs above that par score, just to create a bit of pressure on the New Zealanders.
They've got the challenge of Trent Bolt. We spoke about Saudi, and we've spoken of it many times, as Ajit points out. Bolt's actually right up there among the leading wicket takers in this year's T20 World Cup. Adam Zampa features too. A few wickets in the last game against Afghanistan have put Bolt joint up there with 11 wickets. Amaila, you spent a lot of time with him in the IPL before the World Cup. He was excellent last year. Had a slightly underwhelming IPL, or at least the second leg this time. He seems to have found his mojo back. What's different for Bolt, the bowler, in this World Cup, Mahela?
I think yeah. It's been probably unfortunate for Mumbai because he came after a bit of a lockdown period. He went back home and he hadn't had that bowling under his belt when he joined us. So we had to slowly build him up. And for New Zealand, he's peaked at the right time because he had the bowling through the IPL. He came well for us in that middle phase, and then he bowled well. And then you see, I mean, once he starts swinging the ball up front, he can be as lethal as any bowler in any format. I think that's the confidence level of Trent Bolt. He's a rhythm bowler. If he's got that rhythm on that day, he's going to do a lot of things with the ball that he's not going to be afraid of batsmen trying to come after him. He's still going to challenge them in that aspect. And knowing the New Zealand setup, knowing who's behind that setup, I know they will have proper plans against England batters, and he'll be more than happy to execute those skills.
As one of those bowlers who relies heavily on swing, Ajit, where does he stand among those that have evolved his bowling to a point with which he can be relevant, be effective, even when the ball doesn't swing much, as we've discussed before?
Yeah, I think right up there. I was about to say, in the last couple of games we saw he shifted gears. He bowled differently, bowled a lot quicker, and even perhaps against slightly lesser teams, gave nothing away. Those two games were a must-win for New Zealand. The Afghanistan game was a bit tricky. You could see, just bowled a lot quicker than perhaps he sometimes doesn't need to when the ball's swinging. Plus a left armer, the angles change, which is a little bit more difficult for batsmen. So he perhaps doesn't need to push himself. But when the team needed it or conditions demanded it, he's got that that side to his bowling as well. May not be express, but certainly brisk enough, which then makes the slow ball even more difficult to deal with. I mean, he's a world class performer, and even if the ball doesn't swing, he's got the angle of a left armer, but also the skill set to still be very successful against top batsmen.
And there is no one more at the top as far as his batting is concerned these days. Is Josh Butler. Just has extraordinary numbers, standout batter of this World Cup, you'd think, red hot in form. That's what we've got for Butler. 240 runs. He's up there. Most sixes with 30. I think David Weiser was second, so he's secure of that award too. And he's got the second highest average, the highest strike rate for any batter with at least 100 runs in this tournament. And that would have been the conversation, you think, Ajit, for a while. How do you bowl to Josh Butler? That's what New Zealand are up against. How do you bowl, you think, against Butler? Maybe a bit of Milne. What's the plan?
I don't think there's a plan against Butler anymore. Right? I mean, it's look. I think the one thing that we're hoping is that they get some sort of swing. Then it doesn't matter. There is a little bit of bounce in that surface, so then it doesn't matter who the batsman is. One will bring the ball back into him. The other will take away from him. Saudi. So if there is some movement, it's still a batsman who's new at the crease. And we've seen that at times when the balls come back into Butler, he's had some issues. It doesn't swing for too long. That's probably the way they'll look to attack, but they'd be hoping for some swing. He's in such good form that the one thing you won't want to do too much is try and miss your lens too much or not go too full if it's not swinging because at the moment he's not missing out on anything. So we've seen hard lengths are the way to go, but against Butler sometimes it could play into his hands a little bit. So that ball, I mean, New Zealand will be desperate for that ball to swing, even if it's for a couple of overs, maybe 3 overs ideally, and they'd still have a chance with two really good bowlers against Josh Butler.
Yeah, they're right up there, Tom, amongst, you could say, the master planners and executing those plans as well. So, what is the plan then for New Zealand against Butler?
Yeah, well, as it says, I think, ideally if the ball's swinging, that's a bonus. But if not, I think with Butler, it's important that you're changing your pace regularly and you're keeping him guessing. If you're bowling at a certain pattern to him, he'll be all over you in no time. At the end of the day, I think, you just got to minimise to any quality player, minimise boundary balls and not allow them to get away as easily as they can do at times because they're always looking, and Bairstow's the same, they're always looking to pounce on anything that's slightly full or wide or short just so they can get ahead of the game and put you under pressure. But it's a different game for both those players, and we're talking about Butler, but if the ball is swinging. So those first few overs, if the likes of Southey and Bolt can get some movement, that's going to be their best chance to nick him off.
Who plays the big role for you today, Mahela? Now, their spinners have gone below the radar and they've actually been outstanding. Sodhi and Santner, the pair of them, seem to be a hard bunch of spinners to get away. Sodhi may have had one or two games where a couple of batters have gone after him. But anything as to why these two spinners have been harder to just get away than others?
Well, I think they know their limitations. I think especially Sadhana knows his limitations, so he doesn't go away from that. He just holds that length and changes pace, and he's very. I mean, it's all about discipline. I think even in Shodhi as well. I know there are a couple of games that he went for runs, but that was in Sharjah. But on big grounds, he becomes a really, really good threat. And they just do simple things. I mean, that's what good about New Zealand. I mean, they know their strengths. They know what they need to do. They function as a bowling unit. It's not just individuals. I think they function as a bowling unit, and they use these bowlers in different ways and try and get through those overs. They have the sixth bowler. They probably have a seventh bowl option in Darren Mitchell as well. So I think they just utilize all these guys in a different way so that they're not being exposed to situations. I think Adam Milne is one bowler that probably went for a few runs beginning when he got the nod to come in and do that job, but lately he's settled into that role quite well. I think the two spinners. I know they've been under the radar, but they've done a really really good job because they're very well disciplined in their limitations and they execute that skill.
Owen Morgan's a big fan of his matchups, of his data. More than most captains, you think, Tom. He could be a busy man even if he doesn't come out to bat today. On what the role is of certain batters to take on Sodi and Santner. Do you see that happening today? England looking to go hard and trying to put some pressure on Sodi and Santner early.
Oh, without a doubt. And they've got the flexibility in their batting order with the left-handers to be able to combat both those spinners. And as Mahela said in the early parts of the show, Moeen Ali may be the person that's given that role. He's got a very good record against spin. He's the perfect matchup to be elevated in the order when New Zealand try to go with their spin squeeze, which is more often than not between that sort of fifth, sixth over to the 14th over. So if you can counteract that and force Kane Williamson to move his bowling options around and draw out the likes of Neesham more for overs, possibly Phillips as an off spinner to combat a ball turning away to the left-hander that comes in. Again, it's a real game of chess out there. If Morgan, which he more than likely will do, will throw something like that out there, Williamson needs to be, smart enough and quick enough, which he is, to be able to make those adjustments on the move.
Do you think it works to New Zealand's advantage and to these spinners' advantage, Ajit, that there's actually not that one bowler that needs to be seen out as such or played out as such? I don't think teams would be looking at that sort of attack for New Zealand as they would say for a Bumrah or a Rashid Khan or a Nokia in this sort of form. I think it works for their advantage.
Yeah, but they're all good bowlers. So that's the first bit. And we keep talking about New Zealand, and yes, they have got some world class players in their lineup, but it's what they do as a unit. I mean, even the last game, Neesham came and bowled the overs. The last game that they played, so the spinners didn't have to bowl their quota, so they've got that flexibility. And at the moment, whatever's job given to each player, they seem to be doing it well, which has been their strength, and that's why they've beaten some good teams along the way and sit here in the semi-final. But I don't know whether it works to the advantage because they are all good bowlers. If you had sort of lesser bowlers, you could argue maybe that's what's working for them. But they've got a quality attack and a really balanced attack. In spite of not having any sort of mystery about or a mystery bowler in the attack, there's still a very, very good attack.
Who's the better captain on display today, Mahela? Easy question.
I think both the captains are, very calm characters. I mean, they're very easygoing, non-emotional. They just get the job done. They've been in this situation before. I think it's a great matchup for these two teams. I think it's not much of a difference. There are quite a few match winners in both teams. It's who's going to hold the nerve and start controlling things. But the two captains are going to be crucial. And Kane for me probably had that little bit of magic in it, to be honest.
Okay, let me reword the same question for Tom Moody. If the Sunrisers pick up Owen Morgan, Tom, who's going to be captain next season?
I think the existing captain will probably remain as captain.
All right, fair enough. Ajit, are these the two best captains in T20 cricket?
Well, I mean, England are the world champions in 50-over cricket. We'll probably find out in a couple of days' time if they've got the captain in T20 cricket as well. But I mean, he's done what he has done to the England team. He's built this team after that 2015 poor loss that England had back in Australia in the World Cup. And he's dictated how their white ball cricket has played, and they've been very, very successful, and they are one of the best teams in the world. So there's a lot of credit due to what Owen Morgan's done. Kane Williamson perhaps doesn't have the riches that Owen Morgan has, and they still keep doing as well as they do in ICC competitions, and that's a lot to do with how he captains the team. So he just pips it for me. Kane Williamson, as good as Morgan has been for England, I think the kind of team Morgan has makes it a little bit easier than Kane Williamson.
Could it just come down to that, Tom? Who is better tactically under pressure today? Could that just be the difference?
I think that's one important element. There's no question. we've seen over recent times how important the captain is in T20 cricket, and I think again in today's match and throughout the finals, it's going to be critical. The captain role, but to me, it's going to be who can navigate that power play the best. I think whoever wins both the power plays will put themselves into the box seat. That to me is where the game's going to be either won or lost.
Okay, everyone's out in the middle already. Let's get a number, shall we, for a World Cup semi-final? Mahela, what are we looking at? 165?
Yeah, I think 160 is going to be a pass score. I would love to have that 15, 20 runs extra if you're batting first. And England will look to do that because if they get a good start, they'll probably go well past that as well. But yeah, minimum is going to be 160. But I think on that Abu Dhabi wicket, you probably need 175.
Ajit?
Yeah, at least a 170 you would have thought. With all things considered, both captains a little bit worried about the toss, or more keen to win the toss, obviously. 170 will be a good score. I think New Zealand, perhaps, if anything, their batting's a little bit weaker than their bowling. So chasing under pressure 170 might be a tough chase.
Okay, now I'm going to show you guys how this is supposed to be answered because Tom's going to give me a specific score of what England are going to get, and then I'll come back to the two of you. Yes, Tom?
Yeah, I'm saying 167.
Ajit?
171.
Mahela?
174.
Oh, brilliant. The answer can be somewhere in between 167, 171, 174. I love it. Let's pick it up at halftime, shall we? Thank you very much. Ajit Agarkar, Mahela Jayawardene, and Tom Moody. Dharmasena and Erasmus back in tandem to officiate an England-New Zealand game. So that's one more you can watch out for. And I think black armbands and a moment of silence also observed for the curator of the Zayed Stadium in Abu Dhabi, who tragically passed away during this World Cup. So thoughts go out to his family. Do join us at halftime on Maruti Suzuki presents ESPN Cricket for T20 Time Out, powered by Dell, as we leave you some stunning visuals from the UAE. Have a look. They're powered by Dell.